Hey, I'm going to show you guys how to waterproof some electronics today. So, typically, there's a few ways to do this. I use Pre Catalyzed Acrylic Enamel, which is just this clear rust paint, and it works pretty good for waterproofing circuit boards. Urethane's also really, really good too. The acrylic enamel is kind of brittle after it hardens, so over time, if it's exposed to a lot of heat, it will delaminate and peel off the circuits in that and expose everything, whereas the urethane is a little bit more flexible and tolerant to high temperatures than that. But both are really good for waterproofing stuff. So, first of all, we need to tape things off. So, here, let's use this router I used as a demonstration the other day. As you can see, I've already taken it apart. So the first thing to be mindful of is that with these electronics, they will wick. They will draw the fluid up into things like the Ethernet ports, or the SFP cage, or the power connector. Or if you spray it into the piezo, you won't be able to hear any audio, of course, if it beeps or whatnot. So there's a few things that you kind of need to isolate before you actually go ahead and do this. So whether you're using acrylic enamel or whether you're using urethane, this is the first step. You gotta clean the circuit board. Get any dust off of it. If you see any of this residue from the solder bath, usually what I recommend is a little bit of rubbing alcohol, or isopropanol is what I use. Let's give it a spray. Where's my toothbrush? There's my toothbrush. Well, that's actually really sticky. Why is that so sticky? Oh, my toothbrush is dirty. Alright. No biggie. So you just want to get any contaminants off the board before you actually apply your sealant to it. Alright, so I should get most of it off anyway. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to tape everything off very, very carefully, because if you don't make enough contact with the circuit board itself, you can actually cause the wicking. Okay, I don't know if this piece is actually big enough. No, it's not. So I'm just using masking tape. First things first, heat sinks. Now you do want the stuff to get under the chip, so just wrap the heat sink and then give it a little pinch on top to seal it. Right. Remember, you don't have to do this with everything, because you want to be able to coat things. So, we are just going to do this with, whoops, not a big deal. There we go. We're just going to do this with certain things, like the ports. There we go. Alright, so that power port is now encased. Let's do the console port now. guys. Take this little cover piece off for the USB port. Okay, there we go. Now for the SFP gauge. You want to make sure that the tape goes all the way down to the PCB. If you don't, again, it can wake up inside. I'm going to take that off the USB port. There we go. Alright, we're almost there. We just need to do the Ethernet ports. Now, if you have to, tweezers can be very, very handy at this stage, especially when you're trying to get in and around things. It is critical that you make contact with the board. There we go. And seal it. Because again, if that acrylic enamel wicks up onto the pins inside the Ethernet ports, the ports are useless. You'll have to clean them out carefully with acetone. Go. Just gonna flatten that, make sure it seals up. And we've got one more little port here that we need to be careful with. The TFTP, or the VGA port on here. So that's all that. The LEDs don't really matter. Well, I'm having a hard time with that one, so another thing you can do is hotch nut. It's really, really handy when you can't get into something, because this will seal the port and ensure that nothing wicks into it. Because it's got a very, 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 well, it's pretty puddingy. So, you know, it's too heavy to actually get sucked into the port. Okay, so that's sealed now. Of course, I've got fans going in here, so now with this breathe, yeah, it's not an issue as far as oh, one more port. Sorry, the reset button. You don't want to do this indoors when you go to spray it, because this stuff is nasty. Of course, I've already caught a cold, so it's another thing I should consider. Okay, so now you want to get right in here. So I'm going to start with the top. You want to evenly coat the board, not with too much though. Make sure you get right in there. Alright, so we've coated every surface of the board now. So that's going to soak in underneath the chips and that's going to make sure that it's waterproof. Yeah, I say proof. The ports themselves won't be. But then we want to get it on the back too, so. It's a nice even coating. Use the light to see if it's a nice clean, unbroken surface all the way across. This can's just about out. Kind of a pain in the ass. And then this can, I broke the top off just before the video. Kind of sucks because it's still full. Let's go do a little bit of dusting right here. There we go. Okay, so now we just have to put it outside to dry. So I'm going to place this right here for a minute. And let's take the GoPro. Cutscene. There we go, so we're just going to put it in the sun for about 20 minutes or so, just so that it dries. And once it's dry, then yeah, we can bring it back in and put it back together and take all the tape off, you know? Okay, this is sat out in the sun for a little while. It's nice and dry. If you can, I hope you can see that. If you run the light across it, you can see that it's got a very even consistency. That's what you want. You don't want too much so that it's running and dripping. You don't want a little bit so that there's like spots. You want a nice even coating so it looks like glass. See how it's gotten into all the chips, it's gotten into the ROM, it's gotten into the RAM, it's gotten into everything. Now we can take off this tape and give it an inspection. So all the ports are clean. Take this one off right here. There we go, the heat sinks, the piezo. And just pick it off. I love my tweezers. TFT LCD port. See how easily that comes off? Now before you put it back into production, you want to get the light and go across your Ethernet ports, make sure there's no contamination. Power port, console port are clean, no wicking. All the capacitors down through here are all coated, the diodes are coated, the LEDs. But most importantly, the BGAs are coated and it got underneath it, which is good. That's what we want. We want basically anywhere that there will be any kind of current present to be coated so that if water gets in the board, it won't sit there and corrode and destroy the pins. So yeah, that's all there is to it. It's actually not that difficult. The difficult part is prep work and consistency. And now, as an added touch, typically what I'll do when I take this into the cabinet is I'll take a little bit of dielectric grease on a Q-tip and mush it into the ports. and then you can pretty much dump it in a bucket after that, and it'll be perfectly fine. So, yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. You can now put it back together. Here we go. Now the dry time on this, I just put it in the sun, and I usually wait about 10-15 minutes, and then I'll take the back of my fingernail, touch it to one of the chips, and if it's still tacky, I leave it sit longer. If it's nice and hard, it's a nice enamel surface, then it's done. That's all there is to it. It's pretty straightforward if you want to waterproof any electronics going out into a harsh environment. That's all there is to it.